Marlene. It's lovely to meet you, and thank you for joining me on the Life channel today.
Thank you for inviting me, Sharon, and it's a pleasure to meet you as well.
So, Marlene, just jumping right into our questions, I was very curious to understand if you have worked a lot of your life and how important work has been for you in your life.
Work has not been very important for me at all. And I'll tell you why, because my husband has been very entrepreneurial. So my work has consisted of being by his side and working in business with him.
Right.
And that's been various endeavors over the years. And so I've also been home with the kids, helping with business and doing marketing and sales in the business. And so I think there have been periods of time where I really enjoyed certain things that we were doing, but I didn't ever lose a focus of, family and that sort of thing. So I would have to say it hasn't been all that important to me.
It's great to have that balance that you describe. It sounds wonderful. Are you thinking about retirement or any thoughts about that?
Well, I have thought about that. And retirement, what is the definition of retirement? Okay, so let's look at it as though someone may be in the military or in the police force, and they may retire at the age of 40. Now, are they really retired in the sense of ceasing work? A lot of times people think, well, we're retiring and we're ceasing work. And I look at it as though it's a different stage of life. So now that my husband is no longer in business, but I have this business where, I run the website and make the videos and do all of this kind of thing. So to me, I'm still doing something. So it's just a different stage of life. It's not retirement in the sense that people say, oh, I'm going to retire and not do anything, because I don't think people really do that. Even if they get rid of the 9 to 5, I think that they are just going into a different stage, and maybe they, will be managing something different, or kind of my take on retirement. So I can't really say, okay, I'm retired, or thinking about retirement.
Brilliant. So many people I've seen on TikTok, which is how I found your good self, do talk about struggling with retirement. It's an adjustment, whereas what you're describing is very balanced. It's just a change. And could you tell us more about your company that you mentioned with regard to retirement, or what you do there? Is there anything you'd like to share about that?
Are you talking about Rebel Retirement now?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So basically, my husband and I were looking for a retirement business because we relocated from the New Orleans area in 2005. That was 6 months before Katrina, if you remember Hurricane Katrina. So this is something we have wanted to do anyway, but make a long story short, we had come to Montana, and we had, sold business equipment, and got out of debt, and we wanted to move on. We were still raising 2 of our youngest kids that came with us to Montana, and my husband has been more or less semi-retired, if you will, during that whole time. When we came up here, he took a sabbatical. I was homeschooling my girls at the time, so he would take jobs and work part-time, and that's part of my Rebel Retirement message. So we reached a point where, well, how can we take this experience that we're having, and enable others, share that with others, and enable them to maybe retire sooner. So it's more or less looking at what an individual values in their life, and how they can make retirement work based on what they value. So
Brilliant.
As far as business goes, of course, you're probably seeing that when you're working for yourself, that's flexible, the remote working, and it does require discipline, to get these things done.
Yeah.
But basically what we do is we offer a message where you can retire based on the money that you have today. We all, need money to pay the bills and so on and so forth. But if you look at it through a mindset, a just-in-time retirement mindset, which is based on the Toyota production system. I don't know if
Yes.
you're aware of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
where you'll have yourself a Kaizen event to determine what it is, the direction you're going, what it is that you really value and want. And then you'll set your plan, and then you'll have this continuous improvement mindset. So we really trying to encourage others to look at their lives that way, as opposed to mainstream that says, you know what, if you don't have X amount of dollars in the bank, you're going to have to work until you're 70 or till you die,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much the message that we're trying to get out, is to say, your job is not your life.
Yes.
And if you look at this in a certain way, rather than from the peer pressure and what, financial advisors are telling you and all of this, that you can make it work.
Brilliant. And now I get why it's called rebel retirement, because it's taking a new look at how to do it for yourself rather than the
Yeah,
standard narrative.
yeah.
I was just wondering, over the span of time that you've seen, have you seen any major technological advances that have really impacted you?
Oh my goodness, of course. Smartphones, of course, but I would like to tell a story about the mid-'80s, when cell phones first came out, and computers.
Okay.
I think of myself as one of the first people to have a cell phone. Do you remember the old bricks, the old Motorola bricks?
Yes.
Those big
Yeah.
clunkers. They didn't do nearly what smartphones do today, okay? But as I mentioned earlier, my husband and I were in business, and I would be, taking phone calls, helping customers, or making sales calls and things like that. And so oftentimes I would be, in the office near my desk, and that cell phone just enabled me to be able to feel freer
Yeah.
to, run an errand or do something away from that phone, because I could forward the business calls to that phone. And if I were out, let's say, oh, I wanted to make a bank deposit, right? I
Yeah.
could be doing that and still answer a customer's questions. So
Yeah.
that was great. And of course, now we get into smartphones, and, people can do business essentially
Right.
anywhere. And it's opened up a whole world of just information and connection. And yeah, so I'd have to go with the smartphone. Give out our cell phone numbers to everybody, and or they can text us. And yeah,
Yeah.
so it's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is. I agree. Have you any thoughts on what makes you happy in life, or tips for people if there's such a thing as always being happy?
Well, I think happiness is as a choice. Okay, we have to decide to be happy. And if we're always happy, in other words, if we don't ever have a day where things aren't the greatest, or we're not as happy as we think we should be, how can one really identify true happiness? If
Yeah,
you
you
understand what
know
I
the
mean,
difference.
so, but I do think that to be truly happy, one needs to embrace change and go with the flow, and understand that it's not about living up to the Joneses, and just different things like that, that one would have to maybe dig into themselves, a little bit, and do some soul searching, and realize it's not all about the wealth and material, and going with the flow and embracing change.
Any tips on how to go with the flow? I'd be interested in them.
Well, I think because I've looked at things as being a roller coaster. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Parenthood.
I am. I love it.
We have Steve Martin and Mary Steenburgen or the parents, and this is the time where grandma is staying with them. And Steve Martin's wife, finds out she's having another baby, and his job is in transition, and this is all uncertain, right? What's going to happen? And I think so many of us have been faced with that, like, what's going to happen? This contract didn't pan out, or somebody got laid off, and these kind of things. We're not immune from life, okay?
Yeah.
But in the movie, the grandmother is overhearing them having this exchange, and she says, you know what? When I'm at, and don't quote me on this because this may not be exactly the quote from the movie, but she says, when I married your grandfather, and he took me on the roller coaster, and I always loved the roller coaster. It was so exciting. So I've always looked at life as a roller coaster, as being, and you may not like roller coasters, but it's fun, okay?
Yeah.
Rather than dull.
Yeah.
So when these unexpected things come up and you're going, oh my gosh, this inopportune time for this, and so on and so forth, it's kind of like, okay, this is what makes life exciting.
Yeah.
When one door closes, another one opens. So if you get your head around it and not overreact,
Yeah.
I think that can be very helpful.
Brilliant.
And things generally pan out,
Yeah.
and sometimes maybe not the way that we want them to, but we're all still here, and so I think it's really an attitude about life and the way you look at things and how you handle these, let's say, adversity or unpleasant situations that arise. And yeah, I think that's basically, what I could offer in that way.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think it's really, really helpful. I love that. I love the analogy of the roller coaster. So just wrapping up on the last question then, if
Okay.
you're looking back to your younger self, say in your 20s, would you have any advice to give yourself on life or anything, career, focus, anything at all?
Well, I think basically when I was in my 20s, I did have a tendency to be concerned with what other people were thinking. I mean, this is a common thing you'll hear people say, yes, I was always, worried about what people were thinking. And so, of course, I would say, that's like everybody says, nobody's really concerned with you, that much. But again, it would be to be self-reliant
Right.
and open-minded, and gather information from various sources, and not just be stuck in that routine because you see what everybody else is doing and thinking that's what you have to do with your life as well, because life is not meant to be a struggle, and I think it can be a great adventure. And I think you need to really think outside the box,
Yeah.
to be able to fully enjoy life. And yeah, that's pretty much what I would say.
I love that. I think it's lovely. I think your whole outlook is really optimistic, Marlene. I like the approach that life is an adventure, because it really is. And it's a nice, positive way of looking at it. So thank you so much for sharing all of your
Sure.
insights with us on life. It's been lovely to meet you today.
Well, same here. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for inviting me. It's been fun. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video on the Life channel. Please subscribe, and if you're interested in participating, just click the link in the description below. Thank you.